a person walking up to Susan. Person hits Susan. Person stabs Susan. Now, if that's going on, that's really intense. If we're watching a video, no one will be able to understand that. But if we're trying to, show a video in a crime class, that's very important. We want to know what's going on in the video. And what people understand is, you might not think a lot of screen readers want to watch videos, but maybe they can't watch videos because we do not provide them with closed captions or audio descriptions. So again, the programs that I recommend is NCAM's Magpie and URU Soft's Subtitle Workshop. And it's a very simple software and it's free that allows you to go through your video and allows you to add closed captions. And you'll be surprised the amount of hits that go up on your videos if you add closed captions. So with that being said, again, we kind of walked through the activity of correcting headers, images, tables, and links. And if you have any questions, you're more than welcome to ask us at the end. But we're going to go now into Jeff's portion, talking more about good examples and what you can do to increase the amount of people who can go to your site. Thank you.
Once again, my name's Jeff. I'm just going to wrap up real quick here. We saw earlier kind of a bad example of accessibility in terms of Subway, and it looks like a great site to any to non-visually impaired users, but going through a screen reader, it may be a lot more difficult. I just want to show you some good examples of accessible websites that also look pretty, just to show you that just because something is accessible doesn't mean it has to be unpretty.
My sample page that JAWS with JAWS my 100%.
He'll stop eventually. Sorry. This is webaim.org. Webaim essentially is sort of the headquarters of accessibility for the web. It contains a lot of information, a lot of helpful tips and tricks for content developers, for web developers, for programmers, all sorts of things to help make more content accessible and available for people with disabilities. And if we turn off the styles on this sheet, on this real quick, this is a page without styles. We've turned off any external CSS. This is essentially what a screen reader will see. I mean, you can still load the page with the screen reader with the styles, but this is essentially how the screen reader would read something. And if we see like this, everything is organized nicely in lists. Everything is organized nicely in headers. There are some images. All the images have alternative text. Generally, it'll be a lot easier for a screen reader to walk through all of the content that they need to get to without that much hassle, without having to go through 5 to 10 minutes of just gobbledygook and tables and all sorts of things like that. What they've also done, which is kind of neat, if you go back to the top of the page, is a skip to main content link. This is something that, with a lot of pages that have a lot of navigation, oftentimes if you go to a new page, it'll start back at the top of the page. It'll make it necessary to go through all of that navigation just to get to what you want to see. If you have a lot of content, sometimes you just have to go through all that again. Having a skip to main content link enables you to go directly to the content that you would want to go to. So you don't have to go through all the navigation every single time. You don't have to go through the search bar. It saves you a lot of time in terms of navigating with the screen reader. Just to show you another example, we have one of our own websites. It's Teaching Online. I kind of think it looks nice anyway, so if you turn off the styles on this one real quick, again, it's pretty much the same example of this. It's everything's organized nicely in headers. We have lists. We have nested lists. Screen readers can go through nested lists as well. It tells you what level of a list that you're in. That way, things with sub-navigation, if you have little pop-up menus, you can keep things organized in lists, and it's still easy to get to for a screen reader. One thing that this site is lacking is a skip to navigation, but the idea is to generally do the best you can. It doesn't always have to be perfect. Everything, you don't always have to have every single element if it's just not possible or if it's just not feasible. But even the simple tips and tricks that we told you today will make things a lot easier just for accessibility for screen readers to go through. And we'll go back to the PowerPoint real quick. Just to talk about some other tools that you can use for accessibility. WebAIM has a wave validator. And wave validator is a lot like an HTML validator. And that instead of validating your HTML according to like a document type definition or whatever it is they call it, it goes through and validates it against accessibility. There is a checklist of things to go through that are generally can make a document considered to be accessible. And the wave validator will point out anything that you can do to make it more accessible. Let's say if you have an image without an alt text, you can, it'll show you where it is. If you tried to use tables where they shouldn't be used. It'll tell you where, it'll point that out for you. If you have bad color contrast, it'll point that out for you. Generally, it's a good way to just see how accessible your site may be, and it's definitely an excellent starting point if there's just things that you may want to try to fix. If they're easy to fix, it'll point them out for you. There are also some different design tools that we use. There's the color scheme designer, which I can show you here real quick. And this is a tool that you can use in the design phase of, say, if you're designing a website, if you're designing a course that needs a color scheme. This will let you pick any sorts of different colors that you need to in any kind of style or fashion. What this will also let you do is see the color scheme that you've chosen in a different kind of colorblind mode. So that way you can see if any of your colors may not look right or just may have bad contrast for colorblind users. It's essentially just a sort of another safety net to have a site that everyone can see. So those are just some tools that you might want to use. We also have Color Oracle, which is a very, very interesting one. It's a very, very lightweight program. I wouldn't even call it a program. It's something you can download real quick. We have it on the additional resources sheet. What it essentially does is it creates a overlay on your main screen, which will show you anything that you have on your screen as a colorblind person. So let's say if you just wanted to bring up your website, if you wanted to bring up even an external program, let's say you're coding or you're playing a game or something like that, you wanted to see how the colors would look in that game. You can bring up this overlay and it'll show you exactly how that would look. Very, very handy in my opinion. So these are also some different screen readers. This is more of an in-depth kind of thing. If you wanted to read your document through a screen reader, it's actually not as difficult, but it's incredibly useful if you want to just read through it real quick, just to see how it would sound, if there's anything glaring that just doesn't make sense, or if it's repeated multiple times, or something that may be more difficult for a user to understand. JAWS is the main one. It's probably the most popular one. It's the one that we have on this computer that you've heard here today. There are also some other ones. JAWS costs money, though. So NVDA is a free open source screen reader. It's a little bit less powerful, but it's free to use. It's very easy to use. It's designed so that you can just kind of stick it on a flash drive, stick it in your computer, run it, and it'll run on any machine. So let's say you go, if a low vision or blind person needs to go to a computer lab, they can just plug in a USB drive and run NVDA and be able to use their computer. Very, very nice. Web Anywhere is also a free in-browser screen reader. It's something where you can feed it a URL, kind of like a validator in a sense, except you feed it a URL, it'll read through and give you similar controls as if you were using a console-based screen reader. It's, again, all screen readers are kind of different. Like they'll be the same general core, like they'll be able to read through headers, they'll be able to read through links, they'll be able to read through lists and tables and everything like that. Some may read things a little bit differently, but sometimes it may be something you want to take into consideration. Similar to designing for different browsers. You want to make sure everything looks good in Opera and Safari. If you're concerned about accessibility, you want to make sure that it reads at least similarly and workably in things like JAWS or NVDA or VoiceOver, which would be the Mac version of a screen reader. I believe that comes built in, which is incredibly nice. Maxter's wonderful. And as a final note, I just wanted to show you that what we've shown you here today is a very, very good start. It's definitely put you on the right track to making documents much more accessible. But it is indeed only that, a start. There's a lot of different disabilities that you can go into. There's different motor disabilities, there's hearing disabilities. If you have content that needs to be made available to people who have hard of hearing or deaf, as Rachel mentioned. There are cognitive disabilities. Sometimes people just have to do things longer. Sometimes it'll be more confusing. Sometimes they have trouble thinking. If you have complicated navigation schemes, if some of you are familiar with the term mystery meat navigation, it makes it a lot more difficult to go through for people with cognitive disabilities. And seizure disabilities are sometimes an issue as well. It's not so much an issue now that things have kind of gravitated towards non-flashy, big, flashy things and blinking text and lots of vibrant colors and things like that, but it still can be an issue. Let's say if you have a flash-based website or a lot of video, it's something that you want to take into consideration. If anything, just to put a warning on your material saying if you have epilepsy issues, you may not want to view this or something to that effect. So with that, I think that pretty much wraps up what we're covered today. Does anyone have any questions? Any interesting stories, side remarks, anything of that nature? Okay.
I did have
have a quick question.
Sure.
Just something I never thought about before, but I noticed that when you did the link, you changed it from click here to visit Google. I would have always put the visit outside of the link and put just the link over the word Google. I didn't realize that the screen reader would then make that, it would just say Google then, wouldn't it? It wouldn't necessarily tell it was a link.
It would say link. What it does is that it will say, if an element is a link, it'll tell what kind of element it is, and then read the text that's in it. So what you would probably hear if we said visit Google like we have, what it would say is link visit Google to go to an awesome website. If you took the visit out, it would say visit link Google. I mean, mostly the point we wanted to try to get across is that you want to avoid things like link click here. Because if they're going through, I mean, even just having Google would be fine, to be honest. Because that way you can just go through, if you're going through tabs, home, contact us, Google. Link Google, okay, well, I know what Google is, so I know where I'm going. If it's just click here, I don't really know where I'm going. Where are you taking me? Is this porn? Something like that, so.
Do these voice recognition use the title attribute for links at all? Or?
For links, I'm actually not sure. I think you can. There's a lot of different ways to kind of expound upon what you are on. If you're on a certain element, you can, I believe the command is Control-Shift-5, but you can go through and basically tell JAWS to tell me everything that you know about this link. It'll read any different attributes that it knows, like it'll read alternative text, it'll read title text, sometimes it'll even read class or ID information. It's kind of smart in that sense. Anything else? Okay. How much time do we have left? 10, 15 minutes, okay. Well, if all of you are interested, we do have another activity that we can show you. It's kind of an old page that we were originally using, but we replaced it with something else. But what we kind of designed it as kind of like a do-it-yourself kind of thing. If you have a laptop, you can bring it up with you. You can even take it home with you if you want to work on it. We have an inaccessible document, and we have an accessible version of that document. So if you want, you can work through the inaccessible one and make some changes based on what you've learned here today. Try to improve it, and just kind of practice what we've covered. And you can even compare it with the accessible version. And I don't think we have it on the additional resources sheet, but we do have it.
No, it's not.
It's on my tabs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's available on my tabs.
Okay, so thank you guys for coming. What we'll do for those who have their laptops, because we don't have this activity printed out, for those who want to stay with their laptops, we're going to pull it up on a link, and we'll give you the link that you can go to, and you can pull down the source code. Otherwise, though, I will be sending out a feedback survey along with just some of the resources we went over and this activity. That will be going out in an email. We'll have it posted also on our website. But thank you those who came, and like I said, those who have laptops and would like to stay around, or you could maybe partner up